Mm-hmm.
There are so many factors when you're taking care of your loved one, when you're trying to help them feel better, in some ways, be back to their old self. Music is a big key.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to introduce you to Meredith Hamons. She is a board certified music therapist, and she is the owner of North Austin Music Therapy. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start with, why is music so important for our aging loved ones?
Music's really important because of the way that it's processed in the brain. Music's actually the only sensory input that's processed in all areas of the brain simultaneously. So there's a lot of implications for all kinds of skill areas in incorporating music. But specifically what we see with the aging process is that musical skills remain intact longer and out of proportion with just general functioning skills. So with aging, and especially with dementia, there's undeniable decline. And it's not that music can reverse that decline or stop that decline, but typically what we'll see is a loved one, kind of their general level of functioning might be here, but their functioning with music is here. So even as that decline is happening, that decline, I mean, we can't reverse it, right? Like, they can't reverse Alzheimer's, but even as that decline is happening, what they can do through music is always a step above what they're doing without music. And so classically, I'm sure everyone has seen footage of, someone in long-term care who doesn't recall any memories or has trouble carrying on a conversation, and they hear a song that they know and love, and they suddenly sing all the words, and then they say, oh, my dad used to sing that when he got home from work, and we did boom, 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 and then the memories come flying out, right? And there's some different theories about why that happens. A lot of it has to do with music being stored in the amygdala, kind of in the center of the brain, so it's just held intact there. We know that music memories are highly salient. They've occurred throughout our life. And that's a part of it too. So a lot of times people are familiar with those examples. But I always like to share, because I work with a lot of clients at different stages. What we'll see is when they're even past that stage, when they're not able to verbally share, full sentences or complete thoughts, we'll still see them respond to the rhythm and music. So I've had a lot of clients in groups who maybe aren't responsive to much else, but when the music is going, their toes are tapping, their shoulders are shaking, they can drum, they can follow rhythmic patterns, because again, that musical abilities remain intact much longer than everything else.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mentioned to my dad about how we were going to be doing this interview, and he was like, you know what? Every time I go see your mom at the memory care place, there's always music being played. It's like, yeah, exactly. And chances are it's old music that from her day.
Yeah, hopefully some Elvis for your mom.
Exactly. My mom loves Elvis.
So let's talk a little bit about what music therapy actually is.
Okay, so I'm a board certified music therapist, which means I've actually done training and internships, and I have to recertify every 5 years. And we're trained in how to use music to achieve non-musical goals. So it means when we're working with a client, we're not trying to turn them into a good singer, a good drummer. We're not developing their musical abilities. We're actively engaging them with music, but our ultimate goal is something non-musical. So it might be improved cognitive skills. It might be improved emotional expression. It might be increasing their motor coordination, depending on the client. But those are always the goals that we're looking for. It's just music is the tool that we use to reach those goals. So anyone that's a board certified music therapist is trained. We're trained in music. We're trained in psychology. We're trained in things of neurologically as well, to kind of understand, so that when we're working with a client, we can assess where they're at and say, what are their goals? Where do they need to be? And then we design musical interventions to help them achieve those non-musical goals. So for example, if we're doing drumming, we're probably working on motor goals or crossing midline. We're not concerned with how well they play the drum.
Gotcha.
But from clients' perspectives, it's a lot of fun because they get to play drums and instruments and dance and sing. And so it's really quite an enjoyable form of therapy.
And what are some of the things, though, that are there things that we can do at home with our loved one?
Yes. And this is something I'm hugely passionate about. And I think all the therapists at my company are hugely passionate about. We love what we do. We love working with clients. And of course, we want everyone in the world to hire us. But there are simply not enough music therapists to go around. And there's a lot of people that can really benefit from music. And there is so much that you can do on your own at home. I know a lot of people get very nervous about musical abilities. They're like, oh, I can't sing, or I can't dance. I have no rhythm. I can't carry a tune in the bucket. And a huge advantage we have in this day and age is that we have the internet and we have literally every song on the planet at our fingertips. You can get on Spotify, you can get on YouTube, you can use iTunes, you can use Amazon. Like, I can't even keep track of all the streaming musical services that are available. But we live in a day and age now where everything is there on the internet and everybody has a smartphone in their pocket and can access it from anywhere. So even if you can't sing well, you can still pull up their favorite music. You can hum along. You can encourage them to shake and move their shoulders. And ultimately, I would still encourage you to sing, even if you don't love the sound of your own voice, because it's really, really meaningful, and to have that personal connection. And that matters way more than how well you sing.
Don't pick on me. I'm a great singer.
Well, okay. Yeah. Good thing we have the internet. And I guess, if they would just love to be part of it.
Exactly.
And talk a little bit about how it actually can benefit the caregiver as well.
I think there's huge benefits, because we know that, especially when we're dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, there can be a lot of frustration. And there's a lot of frustration for your loved one, because they know that they're forgetting things. They're confused. They're unsure. It can cause a lot of anxiety. It can cause a lot of depression as they're struggling to connect to people around them. They're struggling to connect to their past. And essentially, when we're talking about dementia, and as you're losing your memories, you're also losing your identity, your sense of who you are, because you can't remember. You can't remember some of the things you've been through. And I can't even imagine how frustrating and scary that would feel. But a lot of times we see behaviors that come out of that can be very frustrating and challenging for caregivers too. And sometimes it can be something as simple as you need them to get in the car to go to the doctor's office, or, it's time to go through basic activities of daily living, teeth brushing and bathing. But they aren't quite sure what you're doing or what you're trying to do. And so they become frustrated or scared or anxious, and react defensively. Like, that's how I would react too, honestly. I mean, all of us would if we weren't sure what's going on. But when you bring music into it and you bring that familiarity into it, a lot of times it can ease that anxiety and ease that confusion. And it makes it easier to do those basic activities that we need. There was a study done a number of years back on caregivers, and they found that very consistently that compliance during specifically bathing routines, and this was in long-term care, this wasn't with family members, went way up when caregivers simply sang when they were doing bathing routines. Yeah. And that wasn't a music therapist. That wasn't a trained singer. That wasn't anything special. It was just the regular caregivers singing when they did bath time. And I think what's really amazing, and why we're so passionate about that, is, first of all, we want our loved ones to be as happy as possible, as calm as possible. And if they're more relaxed during things like bathing or a trip to the doctor's office or teeth brushing or whatever, they're happier, they're having a better life, and they're enjoying themselves more. But then we see the ripple effect for caregivers, because if you're trying to get mom in the car to go to the doctor, or mom to take her shower, and she's pushing back, as a caregiver, your frustration level is also going up. You're getting more tense, you're getting more anxious. And what we see is those emotions kind of ripple effect through our day. And so when you're able to kind of stop some of those frustrating interactions before they even start, it's not just about that moment, which is valuable enough, but it's about how it's going to affect the rest of the day as well. And a classic example, a lot of times I'm in long-term care communities, we do groups there, and there'll be people that we know love the group, they love to come and sing, but for whatever reason today, they haven't put it together that's where they're being taken, and so they don't want to walk down the hall and they're being resistant. I'll always sing something with a strong beat, and we'll march with the beat. And as soon as the music starts, they start walking, and that makes everybody's job easier, because when you're trying to round up 20 people in a room, you want to be patient with everybody, but you also need to actually, get the group started. And that's just a simple way that there's no frustration for anybody, and the end result is great. They end up in music group that they love. We're able to get started.
Well, I think if you think about it, just like with children, when you hear music, you just can't help but react most of the time. And so, you see all those funny videos of little kids doing it, just starting to dance, because it's almost like you can't help it. And I think that must just carry on our whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's nothing more powerful than music, because it literally affects us from, at birth all the way through end of life care. And we see this, I've seen that with my own children. It was really powerful when I became a mom and I had a baby and I was using music at home with her. And then I would go to work, where I work with people at end of life. And I could really see that music affects all stages. And, my daughter, even at just a few weeks old, she would respond to music. And I would always pick stuff with a strong rhythm because that's the first thing you'll respond to and also the last thing you'll respond to. And she would kick and move to that rhythm. And then I would go work with people at end of life. And again, they might not respond to much else, but they would still respond to music. And I think it's hard to even express, this beautiful artistic medium that we have that we respond to innately and naturally and biologically from birth all the way to end of life.
And it seems like one of the first things we need to do as caregivers is figure out what a good playlist is. Like my mom, Elvis, the Statler Brothers, but if I tried to put Iron Maiden or something like that on there, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, definitely. And we always say preferred music is best as therapists. And we say that for all of our clients, but especially with older adults, playing their preferred music is what you want to do. And I also want to caution you against just putting music on and having it on all the time, because none of us want to listen to music all the time. You want to watch for signs that maybe they need a little quiet or they're getting overwhelmed or they're not responding. It's not going to be like a magic cure-all where they're really frustrated and you like throw the CD on and it's going to end it. I think it's best when it's used before the frustrations have escalated. And that's natural. And so I know, sometimes people think, oh, I just play music all the time, it's going to fix everything. It's not. I mean, you want to watch for those reactions. Are they enjoying it? Are they becoming agitated? And feel free to turn it off if it's not having the effect that you need. But preferred music is always best. There are a few ways to kind of help start building those playlists. Number one, ask your loved one. Yeah. Just ask them. Even if you think still ask them what kind of music they like. You might want to start with listing some various songs, various artists or groups or styles to kind of give them some direction and give them something to say, oh yeah, that, because they might not be able to recall, but then when they hear it, they remember. Then if that fails, you can also talk to other family members, talk to other people involved in their care. I always encourage people at any stage, start making a list. And we have this like at our company on file for like every client of songs that generate a strong response. The song, what response is generated. And I like to do this. I would encourage everyone, like, do this today, start today. Because sometimes you'll play a song and maybe mom is like, oh, I remember this. This was playing on our first date and blah, blah, blah. Write it down because the time is going to come when she can't remember that, but you're going to remember it because you wrote it down and you can refer back to it. And later you can prompt her and say, do you remember this from your first date with dad? Because you've written that down and you have that noted. So that's a good way to just start collecting that information. Or maybe she's with a home health worker 4 hours a day and be like, have you ever noticed her respond to music? And they're like, oh yeah, there's this one song by Hank Williams and she always just loves this song. And maybe you hadn't thought of that. If all else fails, if you don't have that information just from knowing them or being able to ask them, guess and check is where we're left. And it's not a horrible option. You want to start with music that was popular when they were between the ages of about 18 to 25. Sometimes I like to pull it back a little bit closer to 15 to 25. There's a lot of research that says that music, when you're becoming an adult, you're going through a lot of these important changes. That's the music that really stays with you the most. Right. It's supported by the research. It's supported by my clinical experience. We see it all the time. Secondary to that, which is less well known, but I see a lot, is the music that was popular when their parents or primary caregivers were between the ages of 18 and 25. So, for example, I was born in 1984. You might not guess that I have a whole lot of memories wound up with the Beach Boys and John Denver, who were popular in the 70s long before I was born. And this is because when we're children, a lot of those musical memories are really, really deeply ingrained. And as children, we listen to what our parents and caregivers listen to, and they listen to when they were 18 to 25. So it's something you might not think of to play music that was around before they were born, but try it because that is the next category. So start with the pop music from those ages and then see what they respond to. And if they're responding to an artist or to a particular genre, then try more things that are related or similar to that. But usually that gives you a pretty good starting place to start building some of those preferred playlists.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you do have a book that goes through some of these ideas.
Yes, absolutely. I co-authored a book with 2 other therapists here in Texas. It's called Music, Memory, and Meaning. The first section of the book just talks about tips and strategies of how to create an effective music listening experience and how to deal with volume issues, headphones versus speakers, just kind of how to set yourself up for success. The middle section is recommended playlists. This is great if you are not sure. They're broken down by genre. They're broken down by decade. So there's like a couple different themes there. If you know they love Broadway, if you know they were young during the 60s, whatever the case may be, we're pretty proud of those playlists because they were done with a national survey that went out to music therapists, cross-referenced with the Billboard top hits, and then fully curated through many intense arguments about what should make the list. What was the preferred artist to really try to narrow it down. So those are there. And then the last part of the book, it's 111 kind of like one-page sessions where it takes a song, there's background information, there's tips to add some simple movements or bring in a visual prompt, and then there's discussion questions. Because if they are having a response to the music, we want to see if we can take it a little further, engage them in discussion, engage them in conversation, and there's questions and prompts that will basically walk you through. So our goal in writing the book, honestly, we were like, we want it to be stupid proof. Like even, when you're exhausted and you're stressed out and you don't have to think, right? Like as long as you have your smartphone and the book, just do what it says and you're going to get pretty far. That was the goal.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, great tips. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Who knew that music could bring up? But I guess when you think about it, it is true that children respond to it. We all respond to it. You can't help but want to tap your toes when you hear good songs, and if it can be a way that can really help us help take care of our make our loved ones have some enjoyment as well as help make the jobs a little bit easier too. It's a win-win.
Yeah, great tips. If you have any type of topic you'd like us to discuss and do an interview about, let us know.